Okay, we start. Thanks for joining in. Today we are going to focus on another type of agentic framework. It's called Azure Agent Service. And what we're going to do in this, we look at how we can build an enterprise grade agentic applications and deploy it at a scale, which is what typically an organization would require. Now, this is the last session, and what we have gone through in the first two sessions. Let's just do a recap. So, in the first session, we covered Copilot Studio, which is a sort of an application, a SaaS-based product from Microsoft, which allows you to build agents in a very user drag and drop manner without really doing any coding. And we also looked at how these agents can be deployed at a scale. Then in the second session, the focus was what happens behind the scene under the hood, essentially to look at what are the underlying frameworks that are used to build these agentic API. So we looked at different frameworks. The most popular is LangChain. We looked at semantic kernel and TrueAI, AutoGen. So the idea of the second session was to give you an understanding at a very high level how you build agentic apps using these frameworks. Most of them, in fact, all of them are open source, and I've demonstrated using C# and Python, Python predominantly, to build applications which can support single agent or multiple agent. That has been the journey so far. Now, today we are going to delve into something which is required by enterprises where security, scale is very important, and that is what we will see today. The approach is going to be we'll do some concepts and then back it up with technology and example. And these sessions are meant for anybody who's interested in AI, not specifically developers. And I purposely keep these sessions at high level just to introduce this concept. These sessions are not meant to be training sessions. I use demos to demonstrate everything which I talk about so that I can add a substance to what I'm saying, not just talk at high level. And I'm happy to take these sessions at a higher level if required, or deeper level. In order to demonstrate, I need to use some platform. So being an Azure architect, I use Azure. But like I said just now, the frameworks and the languages I use are open source. So these learnings can be applied in any way you want. And what you will gain out of these sessions essentially is an understanding that enable your thinking about what is going to be a new wave in terms of building intelligent agent-based application. So this is a continuation of the series which I've been running for more than a year. I've got these sessions recorded and the recording links are there in the invite. If you want to go through earlier session, you can use those links. So let's focus on the topic of the day, which is Azure AI Agent Service. So what we have seen so far, and if I just try to brush up, GenAI, we have language models, vision models, and they are capable of doing generations. If it is a language model, it generates text or contents based on the prompt that you provide, but they lack some characteristics or capabilities that makes them more useful, and that's where agents come. Agents are nothing but a higher level construct which uses GenAI model to perform some actions and also use some data which was not there while they were trained to be more effective. And that's what is basic concept behind agent. So what agents do, they basically take the GenAI discourse to the next level, where an application written with agents is capable of doing much more, using memory and knowledge and tools that we'll discuss today. And Azure AI agent service really makes that whole process very simple, and I'll show you in the demo. So again, going back, we started with Copilot Studio, which is part of our platform. Essentially, it's a no-code platform. We're going to delve onto Azure AI Foundry, and Azure AI Agent Service is part of that. And what we saw in the previous session, where we've discussed all the agentic framework, not just Microsoft technologies. So our focus would going to be Azure AI Foundry, and within that the agent service. Now let's understand what is an AI Foundry service on Azure. So it's basically a platform that offers you all that you need to build agentic or GenAI applications. So you have all the constructs. For example, you have keywords to ensure that your credentials, your certificates are kept um, with the right enterprise security. You have storage account. You have services which are language services, speech, vision, document intelligence, all the AI services that you need in order to build an application. And then you have a concept of a hub, and under hub you have projects. And the idea being is you create models and endpoints, provide computing resources, have connections to other services, SaaS services, databases, and you are able to use those capabilities in every project, so you don't have to work at a project level. That essentially is the concept of Azure AI Foundry. We will focus on AI agent service specifically, and I just kind of explained what are the components of the Azure AI Foundry. So it has resources like search, if you want to perform search on enterprise private data, where you can have your own database, knowledge sources that can be vectorized, and you can perform semantic search. You need a storage account to store files, objects, Key Vault to store secrets. You may like to deploy your application in a container, so you need a sort of a storage for containers. It's basically the container registry. And while you are running this application, you like to monitor in real time and also log certain things that is offered by Azure Application Insights and Log Analytics. Now, why we need all that? Because if you are building an enterprise application, beside just having models, you need all these capabilities to develop an application. Now let's focus on the topic of the day, which is Azure AI Agent Service. And let's understand what is an agent. So think of an agent as like, a small piece of code or a microservice which can perform some task. It can answer your questions based on enterprise data, which is the RAG pattern, retrieval augmented generation. It can also perform actions, and also can do a lot of automations in an intelligent way. And basically it uses generative AI models to carry out all the tasks, and we'll see. And Azure AI Agent Service, if you can see here, is having all that you require to build the application. So you have enterprise grade security, extensive data connections, flexible models, and rapid application development. And that is basically the benefit. Now, what we saw in the last session was how you can write application, but that's basically good for experiment. But if you're talking about building real enterprise grade application, you need a capable platform, and that is what agent service offers on Azure. So this agent service supports different models. There are different models from OpenAI, but also beside OpenAI, it also supports models from other model providers like Meta, Mistral, Coher. The idea is it offers you a choice in terms of choosing what language or vision model you want to incorporate as part of your application. So it's kind of quite flexible. Now, why we need that? Because we really don't want to have to write so much of code in terms of ensuring basically um, basically to create an application you require multiple tools, and if you want to do it at a scale with enterprise security, you really don't want to do it on individual application level. So what you basically get is a platform to do all that in a very easy and convenient manner. Supports a high level of security, and it has out of the box tools for integration, and we'll see in order to enable and enhance the capabilities of agent that we're going to write, and we'll see all that. Now let's start with one of the capabilities which was there for last couple of years, called OpenAI Assistant, which is doing something similar, and I'll start with that so that I can really demonstrate the value of agent services, and we'll see it through a demo. So I'm on Azure portal, and what I have basically a resource provision from Azure OpenAI service under Azure AI Foundry, and what we have here is basically models. You have multiple models to choose on, but we focus on Azure Assistant. Now Azure Assistant or Azure OpenAI Assistant is an agent capabilities which is there available for you. Without writing too much of code, you can actually make use of that very easily. So we'll see that, and we'll create an assistant. Now what is required to create an assistant? Very simply, a model. So you choose one of the model that you have deployed. So in this case I've got two models, so I'm going to use GPT-4 Mini, and you provide some instruction. So for example, I'm going to just put basically an instruction which is going to be used here. It is not. Okay, let me just. Okay, and what we are trying to do is to create an agent which can really look at some private data which we will supply, and then allows you to basically do some sort of a prompting initially here in the playground, and then how we can actually build an application. So this is basically the options that you can use. So in our case, let's go and see what is there already. Yeah. So let me start from the beginning. So let me just delete this. And this is basically from the previous demo. So I'm just doing some cleanup. Bear with me. Okay. So we are creating an agent. Now what we want this to use some enterprise knowledge. So what we will do, we will upload a file. Let me just do that, which is going to provide the grounding. So let's put Ontario Employee Handbook. Now what is going to happen? Let me just explain that a bit. So these models are trained on a generic data which is sourced from public websites, articles, white papers, and it really has limited purpose when we are looking at something which is uh, enterprise private data. These models have no knowledge. So in this case, I'm just taking uh, an employee handbook. And what I'm going to do basically behind the scene, I'm going to ingest this file, chunk it, chop it in different parts, store it in a vector database. And if you have to do all that, it takes a lot of programming efforts, and you also cannot really reuse it. Here, if we do it, we create an agent and or assistant, then really it is very useful in multiple applications. So once we have done that, let's ask um, this question about something which is based on enterprise knowledge only. So I'm going to ask about a policy for the leaves. Now, if you look at that, uh, here it has provided information, 7 working days of leave for the jury duty. And if I just look at the citation, I can look at exactly from where it has sourced as part of the context of employee handbook that I've ingested. Now, this is basically providing grounding or the enterprise knowledge to your agent so that it can really respond based on the enterprise data, not just generic data. So this is one use case, and I'm just trying to just show you how easily one can create a vector database. So if you go to vector store, so this vector database is stored, and what is RAG and what is a vector store. If you are interested in knowing, I've covered it extensively in my previous sessions. You can go through that. And now let's create another agent. So we want to create a new agent, and here we want it to do some data analysis. Okay, so let me just provide some context. So we are providing this instruction: you are a helpful assistant who does analysis from a document. Now we want this agent to work like a data analyst, and the capability which is required to do such task is basically code interpreter, where this agent would use some Python code. So let me just use this Titanic data to perform data analysis by writing code. So code interpreter is the capability which is enabled in your agent, and that will perform data analysis on the data set that you have provided. And what happens here, I'm just enabling it as I have provided a file, and this is basically the data from the Titanic voyage. And here what we will do, we'll try to figure out, this is basically a tabular data with details about each passengers, the point of embarkment, whether they survived or not, and other family level detail, and we'll see that. And let's say if I'm trying to ask this question, and you can see what is happening behind the scene, since it is a SaaS platform. See what this agent is doing. It has basically looked at the data, and there is a code which happens behind the scene. I can't show you, and it actually have written a Python code and ingested that data as a in-memory object, and then performed, after writing the code, a query or analysis to identify uh, oh, uh, how many female passengers died or survived. So we ask another question: how many males? So it performed that analysis, and if you want to do some more analysis, the idea being here is, you can't just do it with the GenAI model, so you need some additional capabilities, and that is provided. When I ask, can you find out the death by passenger class? So it has looked at the data, and you can actually go to internet and look at this data set. Essentially, um, it can really give you the core data. Now this is like writing a Python program and then executing it, and then figure it out based on the data. And that is basically how you create, an OpenAI assistant here. Now, what we will do, we'll try to. So this is good. I've created an enterprise grade capabilities. Is running on Azure. It has all the um, bells and whistles which are required in terms of security, scalability, all that from an enterprise perspective. But actually, the users are not going to, going to really work on portals. So they would be exposed with an application that would allow them to, perform such things. And that's what I'm going to show. So I've got two applications here, and what I need essentially. Um, so these are programs which are essentially equivalent of what I've just shown you. What is the policy about? So there will be an application, there will be a UI on the top of it. But essentially what we are doing, we are programmatically calling that agent. And in order to do that, I need to have the ID of the vector store, and then I'll run it and show you. So this is the ID, and I simply replace because I've just created. And what I'm going to ask, same question, but what I'm showing here is how you write an application that makes use of that agent that we've created just now. So I run it, and let's see. So the same question. So you would write an application in any language, use the code to connect. Okay. Um, so let me just not do this, because this is, I want to just print the message. It is providing me too much information. So let me just run it again with a smaller message and see what it results into. So I'm not putting the entire response as an output. I'm just putting the text that is. So see here, if you can see, it is providing you the same response. 7 working days. That's basically what you have. Again, the idea is how you can programmatically call the agent that we have created on Azure portal. So let's look at the analysis part. For that, I'm just trying to show you how things are done um, in terms of creating an agent without writing a code. So I need a file ID, which is this. Um, let me just populate this here. So this is basically the assistant ID. Sorry, I don't need, because assistant is associated with where is the assistant here? So this is what I need here. Is it assistant? No, I think I need the file ID, not assistant. Now what we are doing, we are asking this agent, which is having the capability of code interpreter, um, to perform that data analysis. So if I save it here, then say Python instead of search engine, I want to, and we should get the same uh, output that we got. So the question was how many people who are female died, and okay, so it is providing you sometimes. Did it answer? Feel free. It has analyzed. This was the structure of the data file, and then it is actually defining the process, and then after doing that, it has resulted into um, 81 females as the answer, and that's basically a kind of data analysis it has performed. So that's basically um, how we saw an assistant being created on Azure. Assistant is uh, basically having capabilities in terms of um, looking at a data file if it is a tabular data, or you basically connect the assistant or agent to the um, vector store for for which you have provided an enterprise data file, which was Qantas so employee handbook, and then it could really search effectively. So now let's move to the agent service, and the purpose of um, showing you assistant is essentially to show you how things are done programmatically. What Azure Agent Service has, it has support, and we'll see that support of REST APIs. So what Microsoft has done, it has taken the AI assistant concept from OpenAI and extended it to support other capabilities which are required to build an agentic AI application. So like I said in the beginning, the value uh, of GenAI is extended by having another sort of a layer added on the top of it in the form of an agent. And agent can perform actions. It can look at the knowledge source and answer it based on the grounded data that you want, not the generic data on which the GenAI model is trained. So you want it to perform actions, okay, use knowledge, and that's where you require support for REST APIs, because you probably have some data sources in the form of APIs which are available in your application like CRM or SaaS product, and you want to pull out information, perform some action, and that is where you need REST interface. You can write your own code either in the form of Azure Function, which is a first-class service on Microsoft Azure, or Logic App, which is a workflow. You can bring in knowledge tools, and we'll see all that. Bing Search, Azure AI Search, and other sources, and you have support for different language models. And let's look at it, how we can do that. And I'll just show you how you create all that using Azure. So basically, what we are trying to do, we are trying to create um, and the reason I'm showing it to you specifically for um, Azure Agent Service, which is what we kind of saw in sort of a small demo. So how do you go ahead in terms of creating a resource? So we want to create Azure Data Foundry, AI Foundry object. So this is the platform which will enable um, you to create the right landing zone from a platform capability perspective in terms of writing GenAI applications. So we will just create, and then I'll show you. So I am going to create a new resource group. Resource groups are the way you bundle your resources, and we are going to have lot of resources in our instance. So I'm going to use um, USE 2. The idea is there are certain capabilities which are not available. I will give a name, and that's it. And then I need to provide some details about the storage, because you would be storing a lot of documents here. So you can put any name you can create. So this is provisioning a set of services that would help you build the right infrastructure or services stack for okay. I'm using okay, good. I don't want container registry in applications, right? If you remember, I've discussed all these resources that you require, and you decide the kind of access, whether you allow public access. So for this demo, we'll just go anything which you want to encrypt, kind of identity. All this is very important for you to really build something which is enterprise grade. So in a couple of seconds, maybe 30-40 seconds, is going to really create all those resources. Once I press create button, and you see it starts building storage account, a GNAI service, keyboard, and other related things, and we'll see all that happening here in real time. So what is the purpose of showing you all this is essentially, we've discussed a lot of things, but then what is the next step? Okay, what is that is required to build something which is fit for enterprise use, with all the required guardrails, security boundaries, and other aspects which are scalability, access. So you can see here, it is creating a key. It has created a keyboard, storage account, a cognitive service, which is Microsoft AI umbrella service, and we are creating an AI foundry. And once we create, and I'll just quickly show you what is that is required, very similar to what we have seen in Azure AI Assistant. Okay, so this resource is created. Now we can go and launch the foundries. This is sort of an umbrella platform that enables you. And I'll just quickly show you all that, because we have seen the demo already, how we create an agent, and then how do we make use of it. So basically, this is what we have. So while it is doing it, let me just so you create a new project, and you give whatever name. A hub is required. So like you've seen, projects are under a hub, and you basically create capabilities at a hub level, so that every project that you have, so each use case that you're going to implement would be a project. You want to do some document search, you want to create a workflow, you want to enable some sort of an auto reply based on a customer support request, or you want to process an event um, you know registered somewhere else in your IT ecosystem. All that can be the triggering point for you. Or you build a UI where you allow people to upload a document to analysis, like we did it on Titanic data set. So it takes time, and once you do that, you can see the agent service. There are others aspects that I'm going to show. So you have a rich catalog under Azure AI Foundry. You have models from uh, everybody here, every model provider, Mistral, um, Cohere. You have models from other vendors, and you have a playground. That's what we saw once you choose a model, and you have a set of AI services that are required: speech, language, vision, content safety. Content safety is very important because you really want to bring in those guardrails so that people are not putting some content which is discriminatory, violent. So that's where you set up the guardrail. Again, very easy, drag and drop. We did something similar. So you have an agent that you can create. You probably need to create an instance. In this case, we are using OpenAI, and that's all about it. You choose a model. You have choice of model. I'll just show you all that, not create something because it's something very similar to that. And then you deploy that model, which is create an instance of a model which is available as a catalog item, and then you create agent. So now if you look at the agent, the reason I'm showing it here is those additional capabilities which are available. If you see here, so you have support for multiple knowledge sources. So we only had file in assistant of Azure OpenAI here, whereas you can have Azure AI search, you can implement um, Bing search. Going forward, it is in beta. That would provide the kind of grounding that you require with an agent. So that agent, while it is running, can source information which is your enterprise or private data, and respond accordingly by looking at the real content like what we saw in the demo. And again, agent requires to perform actions, and that's where you have capabilities of code interpreter that we saw in the demo, and you can call any open API version 3 specification, which is the standard for APIs. You can create functions and Azure functions, and then add some custom logic that you want that agent to perform. Say, for example, based on the context, you want um, a database to be updated, or record to be created, or an event to be published. All that you can, if you already have existing APIs to do that, you make use of them through OpenAI, Open APIs specs. You just upload the definition of the API. It was called Swagger. Or if you want to write your own function, custom function, or Azure function to enable that additional capabilities that is required for your agent to work. So that's basically what we have. So what we saw essentially with Azure AI Agent Service, you can rapidly develop and automate process, integrate with extensive memory and knowledge connectors. You can connect to Bing search, you can connect to AI search and other sources. You can choose a right kind of a model, and it is ready at an enterprise level. And that's why I have scheduled this session topic. So we have discussed that with Azure Agent Service under Azure AI Foundry, you have tracing and monitoring, content filter. You can bring your own storage, your index, and you can also support authentication on the behalf of, for example, you write an application and you want to run that application on behalf of a user, so that whatever access and authorization the user has, the agent would really be able to do that level of work. We saw these capabilities you have actions, you have knowledge. These are the two most important things in agents. You require it to be enriched with the data that you want to use for the agent to ground its response, not the data on which the model has been trained. So you have file search, code interpreter, Bing, SharePoint, Microsoft Fabric, and you want to perform actions like what you saw, and then you have a choice of OpenAI and other models. So we saw that already. The grounding, these are the different sources. You would see a lot of companies providing the kind of data. For example, TripAdvisor gives you all the information that is required if you are, let's say, planning a trip. So the agent is going to source the data from TripAdvisor, and you will see more and more data and service provider joining. And the purpose of having this SaaS company or data provider is to ensure your application follows the required standards of uh, of of the enterprise. You can add action. We have seen that, and that really makes it great. Now, so far, what we have seen both in Azure OpenAI Assistant and Azure AI Agent was a single agent concept where you have written, you have not written, you have not done any coding work. You have created an agent which is capable of leveraging enterprise knowledge sources, perform actions, and you can have as many knowledge sources and a set of actions for agent to perform. But sometimes you may require a multi-agent kind of an architecture. And in the last session, we've seen AutoGen and other framework like CrewAI, Agentic supporting that. So there are use cases where you want multiple agents to work, and I will show it to you what is the value. So if one agent is good, sometimes having multiple agents with a very clear focus on their task is better, and that's we'll see here through a demo. So if you want to create a single agent, you can just create an agent in Azure AI Foundry and then call it through a program. And if you want to have multi-agent architecture, you can use AutoGen for ideation, and then you can use semantic kernel to write applications which are enterprise grade. And I will just show you something which is a demo of how you can create multiple agents using semantic kernel. Now, both AutoGen semantic kernels are open source contribution from Microsoft, so they are available for you to use if you are really kind of keen of using such framework. Otherwise, you can use LangChain and other multi-agentic framework that we have discussed like CrewAI. So let's see that in action. And I will just run this demo first and then I'll explain. So this is basically a multi-agentic use case using semantic kernel. And what I have here is multiple agents. You can see here I've got a question answer agent, an answer checker agent, and a link checker agent, and a manager agent. So let me just run it. So what we have here is a very simple application that I'm running here. And what it is doing, so you ask any questions based on a context, and you want an implementation of multi-agents here, and we'll see. So if I'm asking question, who invented light bulb? So then let's say this is the question, and I want multiple agents to work on different aspects of it, and that's what we see here. So there is an agent which is called question answer agent who will answer that question. It can be any context, any question, or it can be any task. and it has actually done its job in terms of answering the question and provided some links beside the answer, which is the source of its response. Then we have an answer checker agent, which is validating, and I'll show you what goes behind the scene, which is validating the response. And then we have another agent, which is checking whether these links are correct. It is just validating the links from where the answer data or grounding was sourced. And then we have a manager agent which says, okay, if the answer checker agent approves it or says it is correct, and link checker agent, it will approve it or it'll say this. So why we need such things? So there are situations purely on the non-deterministic or probabilistic nature of GNAI model where you cannot be 100% sure about the model response, and you want to put in some safety, a guardrail, especially in scenarios where there is a high risk involved, or you're dealing with the customer, or you're performing a high value transaction for a banking application. So you just do not want to go by what the GNI has uh, produced as a result. You would like to validate it, and that is essentially what we are doing here. So we got a series of agents, so 3 agents working. One is generating a response, the other 2 are checking, and then there's a manager sitting on the top of it, whether it says approving or not. Now this manager can be a human in the loop, where for such transaction which are deemed risky, you want it to be approved, but you get the point. So here we have this arrangement where we have multiple agents. Let me bring in. So we have created 4 agents, provided the prompt, which is the instruction for these agents to behave and work in a particular way. And then we created a sort of a work group, which is which is composed of a question answer agent, answer checker agent, and link. So this is how you write, and I really don't want to take you to the programming detail, but essentially this is what um, illustrates the point I was making. Sometimes you got to have multiple agents, and you can use Azure AI Assistant or Azure AI Agent Service to make use of it if you're looking for a single agent. Whereas if you have a requirement to run multiple agents, you can make use of um, multi-agent framework like AutoGen, Crew AI, semantic kernel, which is the case here. So that's pretty much. Let's just recap what did we discuss today and try understanding the agentic aspect in a more enterprise level, and there would be other services from other vendors. Google is doing a great job. Anthropic has got its own framework. It will be kind of similar. So I'm not kind of promoting Azure platform. I need to show it to you to prove a point. That's why. So what you require a sort of a platform where you can write agentic applications with capabilities like access to knowledge and the ability to perform actions. And one of such services is Azure AI Agent Service under Azure AI Foundry. And the benefit is to the developers and architects and technical people is a platform which is a proven platform um, to make use of the capabilities which are bundled as a service. It's a platform as a service use case, and that's why I'm calling it as a low code. And you can build agentic API apps by leveraging either a single agent and or multiple agents depending on the use case without having to invest too much of time building the core infrastructure in terms of a storage account and key store and all other things. So that's the value Azure AI Agent Service brings as a robust platform to bring your AI vision to life.